Hello, everyone, and thanks for tuning in to Canadians with Disabilities and Their Allies. My name is Brent Frain. I'm the host, and you can also check out the show on Spotify or your favorite app. The show is also known as PWD Allies Podcast. Today, I am my own guest, and I will be talking about transportation. That's the theme of the show, is disability stories, but today's theme is transportation. So I'm going to dive into the regions of British Columbia, where I am. I'm in the capital region, which is the capital of British Columbia in Victoria. And after British Columbia, I'll be kind of making my journey across the country, to Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and Ontario. And one of my other panels that on the show here today is Dan. And Dan, I'll be kind of picking away at you about the transportation in Ontario, in your jurisdiction, and see what's going on there. Then we'll be kind of looking toward the Maritimes and the Atlantic provinces. I don't know too much what's going on out that way, but anyone tuning into the show today on the live,
they can let us know, right?
Yeah, anyone on the live show can send in your comments and let us know what's happening in your jurisdiction across the country. If I don't get to each jurisdiction, definitely send in your comments. Let us know what's happening. So therefore, I'm going to just jump right in here, Neil and Dan, and anyone else.
And we should say that we did invite a bigger panel.
Yeah.
But Dan is the only one that's not hungover,
It's
and he showed up. He showed up for the show.
It's always
I quit drinking, man. I quit drinking. I swear. My fingers crossed. No, guys, great to be here with you today, and I'm looking forward to listening to your stories and the stories from the other areas, because three things I'm very adamant about is homelessness and housing, some of the Toronto police situation here, and also the transit with various lines going into effect. So yeah, very, very much looking forward to it, and looking forward to people's feedback. Throw those questions.
Well, for people that don't
try not to swear.
For people that don't know too, Dan, you used to, like, a big part of your you still do, but I'm saying when you first started on YouTube yourself, on your channel, a big part of your content was actually just riding transit, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. And it still is, I know, but I think that's where you kind of did your meat and potatoes at the beginning, was all the riding the rail, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did that actually because I actually rode 3 different lines here in Toronto. So every day to get to work at the time, I was riding what's known here in Toronto as Line 1, Line 2, and Line 3, the Scarborough SRT. The SRT has since been put out of commission, so there will be no more rides in the SRT. It's turned to buses for now. And the other Line 2 is actually going through some changes itself. We have a fairly new chairman of the TTC board. And so there's going to be some new cars and service changes to accommodate the people going east and west, not just the people going into downtown Toronto. So yeah, great stuff.
Yeah. Great. And we'll definitely dive into that. Want to make our journey across to Canada, and I'd love to hear more in depth of what's happening with all that. So anyone tuning in today, so we're going to focus in on the stormy British Columbia active weather systems coming in here, and people need
snowing here right now in Surrey.
Oh, we need active transportation, reliable transportation to be dependable, reliable, and accessible.
You're the weatherman, Brent. You should be giving a weather forecast right now.
Yeah. Well, definitely. There's an Arctic blast that's coming in from the they call it the polar vortex. That's going to be coming across down across Canada later this week. A lot of regions they're bracing for about late Wednesday night, Thursday, and it's going to come right across. And
Thursday here it says it's going to be -14, which is cold for BC. BC is always like the mildest part of Canada.
And well, southern BC, yeah.
So yeah, southern BC. So when it hits -14 here, that's cold. That's considered pretty cold here.
Yeah, for what we're used to. And yeah, especially when you gotta take transit and then you gotta wait and catch a bus, and then you get that wind chill blowing on top. Wow, I mean that'd be, it's what it feels like, right? It makes it feel a lot colder. So when it's going to hit British Columbia, and then the mountain areas are going to get hammered with a lot of snow, and we need a lot of snow in the mountains as the snow runoff for the spring and the summer, because we've had a very low count of snow. This would be the first snowfall hitting the mountains right now, and the prairies are going to get beaten really harsh with that polar vortex coming down. And Ontario is actually bracing for some winter conditions too. Definitely a lot of snow accumulations in different regions. Other areas maybe mixed rain snow or back and forth, so as the system comes in. So with that being said, the theme is like transportation on how active weather and winter conditions affect people's commutes. In the capital regions here in British Columbia, we get a little bit of snow and everything comes to a grinding halt. I mean, I can say like last winter season of 2022 and 2023 were pretty active. 2023 was actually worse than 2022. We actually beat Nanaimo for a little bit there in snowfall. We had a major just dump of snow. It just came out of nowhere. And transit, as we know, I did a Breaking with Brent segment and sliding.
I still love that one.
Yeah,
I have a story of transit in the. I have lots of stories of transit in the snow actually, but one story that I love is, I mean, because I used to take transit a lot, and so I've had lots of experience with riding buses in the snow. And there was one time it was a really bad snowfall. This is back when I lived in Burnaby, and it was right around the Metrotown area for people that know where Metrotown is. So it's like Willingdon and Kingsway. And you have this like standard big bus going down Willingdon, which is a fairly steep hill, and just covered in snow and blowing snow. And the only thing, like the driver would be hitting the brakes and the bus would still be moving. So and it was just like a slalom. Like he was just treating it like slalom. And when he had to stop, he was deliberately scrubbing off the speed of the bus, like deliberately banging into the side of the road to like scrub off the speed. And I mean, he was like, I have to say that he was like an expert job driving, because that's all you could do. Like he was doing everything he could. Like there was really no way to stop the bus other than to scrub off speed by deliberately like scrubbing it off from the side. And he did a masterful job. It was like amazing to watch. I was like, wow, this guy's like really good. You could tell.
Yeah, and that would be quite the shocking experience for the commuters to.
Because you hit the brake and you're still moving.
Oh yeah,
and so the only way he could do it was scrub off the speed by going off to the shoulder a little bit.
Yeah. My gosh. Yeah. Well, in Victoria, you got the conventional buses here, and we got double-decker buses in Victoria also. When the roads get really icy and slippery, there's reduced service in certain areas, outlying areas outside the city. There's definitely a lot of cancellations when we get snow and really brutal weather like that, because buses just can't make it up the hills and stuff. Because Victoria still has some hills here and there, but definitely it makes it for quite the commute. And I remember, like, say last season, everything came to a grinding halt. They suspended all bus service indefinitely until the conditions improved. I couldn't even just imagine, in which I did then go through it when I did a breaking with Brent. I mean, I'm walking in the middle of the road. There's no traffic, and I was walking in the middle of the road. No, nothing, no transit, no transportation anywhere, and it was icy. And then the salt trucks came by and they de-iced it. But then we had another snowfall came down, so it was just all fluffy snow. It was just great to go through until I hit the one snowbank, and then I just poof, whoa.
Yeah.
You know,
I have another story of walking down to the bus, and again, this was also when I lived in Burnaby, so this was going back quite a while. But I was walking down Willingdon a little bit to the bus stop, and lots of snow on the road, and all of a sudden I see this I see this truck coming, and there's just this wall, like this tidal wall of like wet snow and like all this shit. Like you could just see this, and I'm not quite to the bus stop yet, so I'm not behind the shelter, and I just see this wall of like wet snow and shit, like, and it just went right over me like a tidal wave, and I just got completely soaked. So, and I was on my way to work, so I had to turn around, and maybe I don't know if it was, maybe it was I was university at the time, I forget. But then I had to turn around, walk all the way home again, and get changed, and then go all the way back. But when I came back the second time, I was really careful to watch for if I saw this big tidal wave of snow coming. Like it was one of those things that you just saw, a tsunami of like wet shit coming. I was like, oh man.
Would you like?
And you just knew I just knew I was gonna get drenched. It's like, oh,
like, yeah, would you like a slushy today? Here you go.
Yeah, it was bad. It was bad.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you talk about the transportation going from Victoria, and like I've dived into this story many times, and I'm still advocating for change. And then that's what it's about, is bringing the awareness of the inequalities with our transportation system across the regions, not just on the Vancouver Island, which definitely needs better, way better transportation, connecting communities to communities, not just commuter service. It needs to be throughout the day, to and from every community, connecting every community together. I know it can be done, because that's another area that I'll be talking about momentarily. Because when I talk about my journey, when I do my Breaking with Brent segment, when I'm trying to get from Victoria over to Duncan, which is the Cowichan Valley, then over to Nanaimo, you have to take one bus, and then you connect up in Duncan and go to Nanaimo. You can get there, you just can't get back, right? And there's a problem there. So when I talk to each jurisdiction, they pass the buck back and forth. Not my problem, not your problem. Yeah, well, you know what? We're together. Make the system better for people so they can get to and from. The magic word is take the word commuter out and change it to express. That way now they're actually forced to actually provide the service to and from each community. Yeah, so you know, like the Nanaimo going out to Campbell River, they're going to be launching a service. There's in the work. They're talking with the other mayors in each community, and kind of working in partnership with it. That's going to be awesome for people in the Nanaimo. Now, going out to Campbell River. Campbell River, unfortunately, right now is having a BC Transit bus strike. So there's no service at all. And I know Linda, I know she's a regular commenter on the message thread here. And if she's joining in, she'll probably hear me talking about this today. Sorry, Linda. You know, I'm really sorry that you're going through that. You're caught in a labor dispute. You know, as a commuter, nobody should be having to not have transportation to get to to appointments, to grocery stores, to wherever you need to go, right? and now having to walk. I mean, that's not always easy for a person with disability or a person that's senior or low income person or anybody in general. I mean, you need that transportation. It's a basic means of transportation. It's an essential service. So I really hope that the parties involved with that labor dispute really sit down at the bargaining table and rational out some kind of agreement and get that service back up and running, because people rely on that service. They need that service. Imagine if
the other thing is
yeah,
give them back their bus pass.
Yeah, exactly. Give them back the bus pass. And that's another thing too. I want to see that $45 a year bus pass reinstated in BC. It was an election promise before. Let's make it happen. Let's just do it. And people who have that $52 now, just let them keep that. Just let them have that $45 a year bus pass. Be done with it. Seniors have it. Sonia's mom just recently applied for it. We got her to apply for it. I didn't know that. Yeah, and I've been advocating for this. I didn't even know that she could qualify for it. I thought that it was people that were actually in the system that actually had to qualify for it. No, it's any senior who can apply for it. So her mom applied for it, and easy peasy. Like, it was within a couple of days. She went on. Sonia's mom and dad, they went online. And
so is it 60 or 65 when you can apply?
60. I think it's no 65. Yes, 65. Yeah. But anyway, so she went online. Sonia's dad went on and helped her mom, and they went on within no time at all. Just quickly, and within a couple of days, they got a letter saying, "Hey, here's the letter. Take it to the bank." They went to the bank, paid the $45 for a year. Yeah, a year bus pass, everyone. A year bus pass. That's right, for seniors. People with disabilities used to have that once upon a time. The government took it away because they felt that it was equity in the system. Yeah, they wanted to even it out. Well,
people with disabilities don't deserve to ride a bus, I guess.
No, they have to choose between having a bus pass or having the money that they can use to pay for taxi, or you can even buy food.
Just go walk, right, Dan?
Yeah.
Some of the things I've heard from you guys from out there just makes me shake my bleeping head. I mean, it should be mandatory. Any kind of transportation or housing for those with disabilities or those with mobility issues, and especially seniors, should be absolutely mandatory, right? The fact that you guys got to wait 3 days to get back from another town is just ridiculous, right? It just makes me think, of all the problems we have here in Ontario, like how thankful we should be for what we have here. Because there's people the thing that bugs me the most is the stories I've heard from your great show, and one other podcast that I go on for disability issues, was the thing about transportation. Is it rural areas, like, the areas on the outskirts of town? And it's like people, I hate to say it this way, but a lot of people in the mutual aid world too, asking for $30-40 to have a cab ride to get to a doctor's appointment is just ridiculous. And one idea I would have thought about, I don't know if it would work in BC, but was maybe start getting together, anybody who handles transportation files, such as, like, here in Toronto, it would be Councillor Jamal Myers, and everybody there at TTC, but to maybe get together with doctors and try to coordinate doctors' appointments and transportation for people to be able to get there, not only on time, but like in a manner that is dignified, right? As opposed to having to rely on somebody else.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Because, like, out in BC, they have a handy dart, they call it, and it's
not so handy though.
No, it's not always handy because you have to book it in advance for medical appointments. But if you want to go grocery shopping, Handy Dart doesn't take you to those stores. And now, of course, you need to person has to rely on conventional transit, which is supposed to be there. But due to labor disputes, there's always reasons why it's not provided. So I feel sorry for the people in Campbell River. And then from that point on, there is no other transportation unless you take to go up island and to rural areas, up toward Wascamp, Port McNeil, Port Alice, Campbell River. They have what they call it, a island link. Now that's expensive though. Sure, it's there. People can use it, which I'm excited. For the announcement that they have made. That bus company is an independent bus company. They've launched it to go from Campbell River all the way up to service areas like Was, like I just mentioned, Port McNeil, Port Alice, Campbell, like yeah, all the areas, like all the basically North Island, all the way up. So going from there is $75 to go from Campbell River all the way up to Port Hardy. So that's going to be good for them. Now going from Victoria, the same bus line, they're going to be launching it as of May of this year. They're expanding it, so it's going to go away from Victoria, and then you'll go across Island, all the way to Nanaimo, like all the way through areas like I've mentioned before, like through Duncan, Cowichan. So it's going to go all the way through, all the way to Nanaimo, which it still does, but it's going to then go up to Campbell River and then connect up for $99 one way, plus tax per person. And so that's a good, I think probably a good 5-6 hour trip all the way from Victoria all the way up to Port Hardy. So that's not bad if people want to take that as a transportation mode. Now it's too bad BC Transit can't provide that link between those communities. Yeah, that would be a lot better because people can actually get off for a while and then, make their connections, or like maybe they want to drop off at another community and visit a community on their way, catch another bus, continue on. It can be done. I know Wilson's bus line was providing that service. Unfortunately, they're doing seasonal service now. So it's very unfortunate. They're not launching that until June of 2024. They're going to be coming back online, but right now not providing that service. Once upon a time, Greyhound Canada used to provide the service.
That seems like so long ago now, doesn't it?
It does. I used to use Greyhound all the time.
Yeah.
My mode of transportation.
Mm-hmm.
I could go to the Okanagan. I could go across. I remember one time when I was, this is going back in the 90s. I took the bus all the way from Vancouver, British Columbia, all the way to Winnipeg, Manitoba. And it still was on my bucket list, Dan. I mean, way back then was to go to Ontario. And I was thinking, because I was traveling by myself, my mom had said, "You'll be okay." I go, "I'll be okay." Oh, and I was, to be honest, I was kind of scared, but not really. Like I was thinking like, wow, like this, I'm going to be by myself traveling across the country, almost, not really across the country, but Western Canada. I mean, as far as Winnipeg, Manitoba. And I was thinking at that time, I thought, I really want to go to Ontario at one point in time. And that is on my bucket list, and I will be doing that. I just don't know when. That is something that I want to look at. So getting back to the transportation part, so I know I kind of got off track there. So obviously, Vancouver Island needs better BC Transit connections throughout the community, and I am going to keep advocating. So the government's watching this. I am going to keep pushing my buttons, and I'm going to make sure that you guys actually get the mayors to communicate with each other to get that transportation link fixed between Victoria, Duncan. I mean, Sonia's mom, and I say this all the time because she just gets so ticked off. She, pardon my language, like freaking pissed off why the government hasn't even done it now. They're like, "Oh yeah, no, we recognize there's a problem." Well, you know what? Fix it. Like, fix the damn thing.
I have a solution, Brent. Is that you and I and Dan, we can all cost share we could buy and cost share a helicopter, and
there we go.
And then Dan can say, "Get to the chopper! Get to the chopper!
Get to the chopper now! Now!
Get to the chopper now!"
It just goes to show you the difference in prices too. Because I know, for example, from here in Toronto to get to say Ottawa, which is normally like a 4-hour drive away or whatever, it's only like $40 one way on a Via Rail train, right? And we used to have the exact same services with the Greyhound here too. Like when I was a kid, my dad lived in a town that was about 2.5 hours north of here, and it was way different back then. Like I think I was 9-10 years old getting on the bus, with my brothers alone. You know what I mean? And just it would stop in every little town and every little thing. I haven't traveled far in the last, say, decade or so. Like I've been as far west as, say, the border of Manitoba and as far east as Quebec, which is not really that far. But yeah, the amount of prices and the lack of service in your guys' area, like something's got to give sooner or later, right? I mean, it's probably due to volume too, because Toronto going to Ottawa, say, big time volume, right? But still, the people deserve some kind of service, a gondola, taxi, anything, right, to get you to and from your general everyday needs. Because without that, you're not even contributing to society, let alone functioning, right?
Yeah, and that's like part of what I was just going to mention. They must have been reading my mind there, Dan, because it's like people who can't contribute back into another community. Now it affects that economy. So you bridge that gap, and you fix it. Like right now, it's a barrier. It's a barrier. I call it a barrier from community to community, stopping people from going from one community and then getting back to that other community they came from. Now they get trapped. So how do they actually now commute, because now they're spending all their money in maybe accommodation where that money should have been used to help another community out, or now you're stranded. So getting to like the Lower Mainland, now I'm going to jump over toward the Metro Vancouver, we call it, so in Metro Vancouver, it's such a wide area for transportation. The transportation network is really, I'd say, really good. I miss that transportation network, and I'm going to do anything I can to get us back, Sonia and myself, back over there. People say, yeah, but you're in Victoria, you can do all your advocacy. I can still do my advocacy in the Lower Mainland. I did it there. I can still do it there. And hey, if I need to get over to the legislature, I could just jump on a bus and take the ferry and get over here, right? Or take the helicopter. Get in now. But yeah, so getting to Metro Vancouver, you can go all the way from Horseshoe Bay, BC Ferries, which is in West Vancouver, or you can go all the way from Tsawwassen, or some people call it Tsawwassen, which is in just South Delta. Really, it's really close to the U.S. border. Actually, it's not that far from there. And so you can go away from those regions in Metro Vancouver all the way as far as, technically, it's very limited service, but you could do it, which I haven't done it yet. But I'm gonna try this one day, a Breaking with Brent one. Hopefully, I don't get stranded. If I do, I'll have to stay the night somewhere along the way. That'll be challenging. But you can get as far as Hope. You can go as far as Chilliwack, but there is very limited service. I think there's like 2 buses, maybe 3 per day to get to Hope. There's not much in Hope. Very nice area. I remember Greyhound going through there. The e-bus does, which I'm going to dive into about the e-bus after. I'm just talking about transit right now. So getting to that, so technically you can get to Hope though, which is good. Definitely to Chilliwack. So getting from, when I say Metro Vancouver, is provided by TransLink, which is a governance off of the BC government. They provide the TransLink, which is they cover the roads, and they cover transportation, the whole transportation network, really. Now they provide the transit, which is under Coast Mountain Bus Company. They provide the bus service. It used to be BC Transit province wide, and I guess it was about what, 1999, was it, Neil? Around 1999, 2000.
Around there.
Yeah, around there. It basically BC Transit, or the government, decided that no, we're going to make a new transportation network. So they came up with TransLink, and the whole region had to come up with a bus company name for a company to provide the bus service. And there was a bid out there, and people came out with their ideas, and communities, organizations, CEOs, and all these other, people came up with these ideas, and they came up with the name Coast Mountain Bus Company, which is, a great name. Now providing that service, which is good based on the population in decades ago. And as we know, Canada has blossomed majorly with population growth over the last years. TransLink, Coast Mountain Bus Company, was warned by developers. There was a developer from Europe who came over to a consultation, to a community gathering, and I was there at the time because I was excited, like, hey, I got to hear about this. And basically, so I went to it, and it was because it was weather related too. Like the gentleman came and he says, well, with climate change, in the horizon, I mean, things were changing then, and of course they blossomed over time. And he says, well, make it weather element, so it would actually be protecting commuters from the extreme weather events, severe cold or severe heat. It would have a thermal insulation inside the tube system. And I thought, oh, cool. And it would run all the way from, would branch off all the way from Horseshoe Bay, which is West Vancouver, 2 branches right from there, from the ferry terminal into Tsawwassen, and it would actually connect up all the way to Hope, all the way through a tube system, and it would do a bore system. So it would bore underneath and they would cut and paste all the way across, and they would have escalators going up to different stations along the way, and like feeder systems into the transportation networks, and then they would go to each community. I thought, wow, this is brilliant. Unfortunately, they turned down his idea. They said they're going to go with, we're going to expand SkyTrain. We're going to expand and do LRT. Well, LRT, as we know, Neil, hasn't come into effect because it got voted down due to a previous mayor who decided that SkyTrain was the best model to use rather than an LRT. LRT is for people that are maybe not familiar, which I'm pretty sure most people are, but there are people maybe that don't know what LRT is, light rail transit, right? So it's actually on ground, and actually would service a lot more communities rather than just SkyTrain. It's cheaper. Overall, it's more effective. Just for instance, in Surrey.
Well, I mean, it like I am in Newton here, and that was the plan for Newton.
Yeah,
they were going to have LRT in Newton, and that it would have been the perfect kind of feeder because it would have gone directly to Surrey Central, which is the SkyTrain. So it would have fed right to that.
Yeah.
And I mean, it would have been great, you know, and you know, so I could have taken my scooter, like, you know, that where I am, I'm like basically like 4 or 5 minutes from the bus loop.
Yeah.
In my scooter, like it's really quick, like no more than like 4 minutes, right, to get to the bus loop from where I am.
Well, and that's where one of the stations would have been, right at the bus exchange. That would have been the one station.
That's where it would have been, and then I could have just hopped on that LRT, rode it to Surrey Central, and from there, like the world's your oyster, right?
Oh, absolutely.
But they didn't do it, so you know now if I want to go anywhere, I have to get on a bus first, which I mean is okay, but I mean it would have been so much nicer just to hop on a train.
It would have been a lot less vehicles on the road too. A lot less buses on the road because it would have been just one train up and down, like through back and forth. So just to kind of refresh how this happened, the mayors are on the board. They are on the board, and for the transportation network, and they all had to vote on it. They all had to vote on the decision of the transportation going with an LRT. The one mayor, unfortunately, at the time, had decided that no, it was going to be cheaper to do a SkyTrain mode of transportation, saying it was going to be cheaper, more effective. Well, no, all the case studies were done. I saw the blueprint. I've been following it very closely. A lot of the mayors were very disappointed with the actions of the mayor at the time. He says it would be cost less than half the amount of doing a SkyTrain route. So unfortunately, they said that the mayor said at the time that if they don't go with his idea, he'll scrap the whole, he'll shut down the whole debate on it, and they will have nothing. So they had no choice but to go with his ruling because he was a member of the board. So long story short, it actually did cost more, and it will cost more because yes, you're right, Neil. It was going to service all the way from Surrey Centre Station all the way up to Newton. It was then going to go from Newton all the way to Guildford, and then it was going to go up to Langley. So it was going to service a whole.
It was going to do a way more.
And future growth to go to White Rock too.
And right now all it's doing is going to Langley, which is good, but Newton is like a huge burgeoning area now. And like you said, like it would have covered that and White Rock way more area.
And it would have been built
for a lot less money.
It would have been built by now too.
It would have been built. It would have been built by, and I would have been probably using it for the last 3 years or something now.
Oh yeah, and then the construction for the Surrey to Langley corridor is going to start getting underway. I think late spring this year. So yeah, they're going to start doing a lot of that work. There was a white spot in Langley. The last day was actually December 30th. So now that one's closed. They were in business for 44 years. They've actually had to close now because TransLink actually bought the property of where Yeah, where that white spot was sitting.
Oh, okay.
I used to go there not too often, like just every couple years, really. Yeah, white spot it wasn't really one of my major go-to places, but I did like going there every so often.
I would
So
go there for the pie, for the fresh pie.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
the fresh
And
pies are good.
I used to go there and to get the just get one of their small little burgers and stuff too, and
Hmm.
they were actually pretty good. And BC Ferries has them, but it's just not the
Yeah.
same as going to the store to the restaurant.
Hmm.
So they're going to be building a SkyTrain station right there, and there's going to be 8 stations along the route. It's going to be completed by 2028, and then there's also slated to have some high rises going in. Skyscrapers all around the area. I think there's going to be like 3 or 4 of them, but now it has to go through through the township of Langley. They have to vote on all that stuff. So now here's the question I have for the government: are they going to be accessible housing when it gets built? Are they going to be renting for $500 a month because that's what you give disabled
Yeah.
people for their shelter portion? Now I'm going to get into another segment about
Reserve
that.
your spot for a suite there now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Are they going to rent to that? Is it going to be based on the individual, or is it going to be based on the household income? Well, autonomy wise, based it on the individual. I'm going to be
Mhm.
talking about that part another segment, so I'm not going to kind of waste time on that part. I just want to make sure that the housing is affordable for PWD and BC. Enough of the shelter stuff. Let's just get rid of that shelter. Let's throw it right out of the equation. Alberta doesn't even have it in place. I mean, let's just modernize things going forward. And I think we can make things so much better for transportation for every citizen in BC and across the country. I know we can do better. So getting to about the transportation network is, so TransLink provides this service. I've dived into that. We've also got the West Coast Express. It's a commuter service. Again, it's only a commuter service. So, during rush hour, it goes from Mission, British Columbia to Vancouver, downtown Vancouver. Early morning hours, very early morning hours.
Yeah, we
Drops
should
people
say it's
off.
a traditional train. It's
It
the
is a traditional
traditional
train. It's kind
commuter
of like
train.
anyone who's in Ontario, and Dan could probably, when I get to that part, it'd be like the GO train, from what I heard. I've never been to Ontario, so I don't know anything about that.
I'm pretty sure it's very
But
similar to
it'd be
that.
the
Yeah.
same thing. It'd be the same thing, and that's
Mhm.
like the kind of a train that they provide from Mission to Vancouver. It'll park there for the day. It picks up the commuters during the PM hours and then takes them back to Mission. Now that's the same thing when I talk about from Victoria to Duncan. It's the same thing. It's commuter based. Like it needs to go to and from throughout the day.
Yeah.
People's lives don't get put on hold. They need to get to and from the communities throughout the day. So that's pretty much about it on the Metro Vancouver. Now after Aldergrove, British Columbia, which is the township, falls under the township of Langley. I always kind of got so mad at that because these Aldergrove, the call say, well, Langley. The news hour say out in Langley, out in 276th Street. I'm thinking, no, like it's has its own region, but whatever, that's fine. From that point on, a bus service from the that provides out to the valley. They actually provide BC Transit actually comes into TransLink's area, provides a service from Aldergrove out to Abbotsford. There's also a service that actually goes from Coquitlam out to Chilliwack, and it's BC Transit. They come out, and again, BC Transit comes all the way from Chilliwack all the way to Coquitlam, to Lougheed Town Center. They recently expanded it early last year in 2023, which was very exciting news. When I heard that, I'm thinking, I miss the Lower Mainland so much, because you can actually get all the way from now Coquitlam all the way to Chilliwack. It's about an hour and 40-minute ride now. It used to be
Mhm.
only an hour and 10-minute ride, but because now from Langley, from Carville, now it goes to all the way to Lougheed, so that time's actually added on to it. Recently, when I went out in the basically in December there, I came out to see you, Neil, and then
Yeah.
I went out to see John out in the valley. We actually took the bus all the way from Lougheed after we saw you. We did the show there, and yeah, and then we went all the way from Lougheed all the way out toward Abbotsford, and then John picked us up out there. Yeah, and we took the number 66 bus. and it provides service throughout the day. It's not just a peak hour service one way and no, you can't get back throughout the day, folks. See, that's why I'm saying when Victoria to Duncan back and forth, like it can happen, and that's BC Transit. So if BC Transit on the mainland can do it, they can do it here. It's all political red tape.
And that's the thing about
I'll cut the red tape.
You know, for people that don't know the geography here in BC, I mean, Abbotsford is pretty far out. I mean, I mean, even if you're in Langley and going to Langley to Abbotsford, it's still
it's 25-minute drive.
It's a significant haul to get all the way out there, right?
Well, yeah,
and you know, if you don't provide the service, like you're basically, you know, assuming that the only people that deserve to go back and forth from there are people in cars, and everybody else can just take a flying leap, you know. And you know, and another piece, I mean, I've said this before, but another piece to that is, you know, talking about you know, the fact that I have a manual chair now. I mean, that's the other thing too, is like, you know, I've said, you know, the BC government paid for half because they felt that it wasn't considered like I didn't really need it. It was sort of an optional thing, right? And I mean, when they say that, it's like, well, you're basically saying that the only way that I can leave the house, if I didn't get my manual chair, the only way I could have left my house is in the scooter. And so number one, we all know that the handy dart isn't handy, so that's off. And you can't take a scooter in an Uber, so that's out. You can't take a scooter in the accessible taxi, so that's okay. But you know, there's a cost involved with that for taxis, and so there, you know,
if you opt out bus pass, then
when you say that a manual wheelchair is optional, you're really limiting people. You're saying, well, you know, you don't deserve to be able to get into a car. You know, it's like, you
it's
know,
like paying for the wheels, but here we're not going to give you the rest of the
like you know,
half of it.
You know, maybe we'll let you take a taxi, but you don't really deserve to get into a friend's car or whatever, or, you know, and that's stupid.
That's like the bus pass. You know. It's like, well, here, well, you know, you can take the money and use it for a taxi, but hey, but I still need to get around for the rest of the month. Yeah, well, use your support portion. Well, I'm sorry, paying high rent. Oh, well, you know what? Live within your means. So that's what I mean. It's so
then you pay a couple of taxi fares, and that's like, you know, maybe even a short taxi fare is maybe like almost $20 one way. So two-way taxi fare is like $40 for one round trip.
Plus a tip.
And that's a great segue too, because you guys said something perfectly earlier. Like transportation, no matter if you're disabled or not, it's got to lead somewhere, right? And that's part of the problem, what we have here in Toronto. So for example, just to answer your question, that Go Transit is more of a provincial thing, like a far distance traveling. There are stops within Toronto that it services. And one good thing that they're working on now, I don't think they've put it through, but they're trying to get integrated fare service, because there's certain parts of the Go Transit that go through Toronto that would much better service people getting on and off that, right? Because obviously Go trains are bigger, they're double deckers, they got more space and all that, and it's a time saver. But yeah, you hit it right on the nail on the head. Like, for example, these transit lines here, there's one transit line we have that's a train that goes out to nowhere. It literally stops at a highway. So that's no good to the east side of that bridge. And then there's another subway line, which was that Scarborough RT, which was supposed to extend and loop around. And like you were alluding to earlier, it should have been done decades ago, right? Unfortunately, like you say, every 4 years, new government comes in, especially here at the municipal level. They're trying to please their provincial and federal counterparts, which, you know, when you got a, say, PC government in the provincials, and you got an NDP known mayor, it doesn't exactly jive as per getting funds. So what scares me now here in Toronto just a little bit is what they've started to do is take away from other projects and put into more immediate projects, which is going to leave those other projects out in the air anyway, right? So you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. It's not a get a crumb thing, but you have to get something because, like you said, if that transit leads you out there and your only option is to get on another bus or wheel your way down a sidewalk filled with 3
it's
foot
like
of
half
snow.
finished. Like why have something half finished? Like, like you said, I mean, if you completed a loop, if you made something loop around, I mean, then you can say we got a completed network that actually goes somewhere. Like, even if it's a loop, at least it goes somewhere, right? Not just stop and end.
Well, yeah, you've got your point A, point B, point C, point D, but if then it loops around, comes right back to point A again. I mean, at least it loops around, and that's what with the bus pass that PWD have. Sure, they stay opted in to the system. Yeah, they can have the equivalent of a $45 a year bus pass, right? They can travel anywhere in the transit region across Metro Vancouver, Vancouver Island, the Okanagan, basically southern Okanagan, everywhere in BC that provides transit service. But as soon as you opt out, like I say, if you need the money for a taxi or this and that, you have to go without your transportation. Now you're really hooked for the rest of that month. So if you want to say, for instance, myself, I want to go over to the Lower Mainland. Nope, I can't go and do that because I've now opted out, right? I mean, I can't have that transportation. I can't even get to say Chilliwack, or say I took an e-bus. Now I'm going to dive into the e-bus. And so the e-bus is a Alberta company who provides service from Vancouver, British Columbia to Kamloops.
That sounds like a virtual bus. Is it a real bus?
It is. It is a bus. Oh yeah, it's actually. It actually is like a Greyhound, type of bus, and same coach. A lot of them were old Greyhound buses. They've converted them over, and newer ones. They're really good. They're really comfortable. They've got Wi-Fi on it, so you can charge up your phone on it too. Oh yeah, it's a very comfortable seats. I've taken it years ago.
That's cool.
And so up to Kamloops, and then from that point on, they've expanded their service. So you can go from Kamloops now all the way up to Edmonton. They have a connector bus that goes from there all the way up to Edmonton, Alberta. Yeah, and it's a little costly, but the actual option is there. There's two other ones. There's Rider Express that actually provides service too. They go from Vancouver all the way to Saskatchewan, I believe it is now. They provide it. There's some other companies that are coming on board. They're kind of filling the gaps. Now, a lot of communities are still left not serviced by any other independent companies that Greyhound used to service. Langley used to be serviced by Greyhound. They'd go all the way through. There's Penticton is not serviced at all by any of these other companies that have come out. It's a very unfortunate. Sure, they can service a BC Transit. You can go through.
Well, I used to take I did it a few times. The Greyhound up to Summerland.
Yeah, Summerland.
Way back when I used to do that.
Yeah, me too. I took it away from
or the plane, but I would alternate between doing the plane, which is it was weird. Like you're up in the air for like you get up the air and then you come right back down again. It works out to be like a 30-minute flight or something, because you go up for like 15 minutes and then you come down for 15 minutes and you're there.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's or you can take a 6-hour bus ride.
Yeah. Well, I took the Greyhound all the way from Langley, and we took it all the way through Kelowna, Penticton, Kelowna, Summerland, all the way up through the Kootenays. There was the one route that I call that was the long route, and it went up through Alberta over through Lethbridge, all the way up to Calgary. And I still remember getting there early in the morning, and here's bus driver. Okay, everyone, I'm going to be stopping in Lethbridge, and I guess nobody can hear it. And I woke up, I thought I heard something, and everybody's snoring away. I still remember the year, and I hear us. So, okay, I guess nobody can hear me, so it's fine. I guess I just talk to myself then. When I looked up, he goes, I see one person looking at me. Oh, And he goes, okay, nah, nobody's going to be getting off this bus. It was a winter storm, but don't worry, it should blow over by the time we get to Calgary. We got there and it was this blowing of major winter storm. And this was in the spring. Now, the thing with Alberta, you can get 4 seasons in one day. So now I'm going to branch up to Alberta. Now I love their transit. They've got LRT there. It runs throughout the city. It's awesome. It provides the service. No, I'm not part of tourism. I just have a knack for the transportation. Seeing people be able to get to and from the communities, and seeing how different networks work. Part of my travel segment too. So I've explored that part. But getting to Alberta though, I mean, Calgary has a really good. I think anyway. Personally, some people may argue with that, but I think they have a really good transportation network in the downtown core. Maybe the outlying areas, maybe not so much. Probably same as BC and other areas across the country. Outlying areas probably need to have better transportation networks for sure. Within the city limits, though, they get free transportation, though. Dan. I mean, everybody watching this within the city area. So if you're on their LRT, that's great. I didn't even know that. I wish I would have known that when I got there, but I found out after. That's fine. But as soon as you get out of that city limits, now you have to the fare zone now takes effect. You now have to make sure you have a valid ticket when you get on that train, and which is fair. And I think it's how they have their system set up for ticket wise. It's pretty good. It's pretty efficient. Wicked weather for sure. Going up toward Edmonton, we took the Greyhound up that way. There's no transit through from Calgary to Edmonton. Unfortunately, they don't have that. Greyhound at the time when I took it, it was there. Now Greyhound, as we know, across Canada is no longer existent. Maybe in the future, maybe it'll come back. I don't know. I really hope that it does, because it really needs to be something needs to happen, right? For our across our country to provide better service. E-bus services that area now. I think more competition is better for sure. Edmonton has a good LRT service too. I mean, so it goes to show LRT does work. Now going over to Saskatchewan, like I say, Greyhound. I can only say about Greyhound because I've taken it there, and like I say, Rider Express goes out that way. It's a independent company, so you can get from Saskatchewan, but now up to there. How do you get to Manitoba? There's no connection there unless Manitoba provides a service to Saskatchewan.
Get to the chopper.
Getting to Manitoba, out to Winnipeg. I heard that the transit system is not the greatest because 2 of our guests that we had on last year, since now we're in January 2024, we had them on in December. That was really good. And they 2 people that Sonia and myself know, and they moved to Winnipeg, Manitoba. They were living in Victoria. Unfortunately, they got priced out. Cost of living, the housing, and due to environmental too. Environmental was the number one reason why they had to move away from Victoria. It just got really damp for them here, and it just, her health was, it got compromised. So she had no choice but to make that awkward decision to move to Winnipeg. That's where they moved from. They didn't want to move back there because they enjoyed the weather better out in Victoria than it is in Winterpeg. Now, when they told me about the transportation, because I asked, well, how is it in Winnipeg? How is the transportation? Because I would go out there when I was a kid to see my dad. My dad lived in Winnipeg. And I said, Dad, I'd love to come out here in the winter time. I said, just to check it out. He goes, you do not want to come here in the winter. I go, sure. He goes, you do not. Trust me, I live here. I know. In Winterpeg, you do not want to come to Winterpeg. And of course, Jason and Stephanie told me, yeah, your dad is right. I said, well, God rest his soul, because him and I used to argue about it. And they're like, no, you do not want to come here in the winter. Right now,
I do not like green eggs and ham. I do not like them, Sam. I am.
Exactly. Especially the polar vortex coming in later this week. I guess they're probably right. I probably don't want to be there, and that's why I'm glad I'm in Victoria. Wind chill probably minus 40, minus 50. So people can't go out, right? I mean, they got little huts there waiting for buses, and you have to huddle up. Their transit is just not as frequent. You don't want to get stranded. Snow drifts everywhere. Now getting to Ontario. Yeah, hey, Dan, this is where I'm at you. Uh, Tell me, like in the downtown core of the Toronto, the GTA, I guess how is the transit? Like, I mean, just the conventional buses.
Oh, just before, sorry, just
Yeah.
before Dan starts, we have Ellen now in chat.
Oh,
and
hello, Ellen.
He just and he says the reason he's not on the show is he's not feeling well today.
Oh,
But he did drop a comment. He said, I did Ontario to BC and back. It was in 1996 on Greyhound for $349. So I'm assuming that's for a return trip for $349. So he can correct me if that's wrong, but I understand that to be a return trip for $349.
With Greyhound,
that's
Ellen,
pretty good.
You could buy the 3 weeks in advance trip with Greyhound, and you could get a really good deal. Now, you had to know for sure, though, and I did that. You had to know for sure you are going to be traveling on this day, and you're going to be coming back on that day. Like, you had to have it firm, and it was non-refundable, and non-refundable ticket. So yeah, that was a really good deal back then. Yeah. So answering your question, Ellen, yeah, like Greyhound, that was the way to travel. E-bus, almost equivalent. Like it's you can get, you can't buy them advance tickets. They don't do all that stuff. Conventional, it's great. So getting to Ontario about the transit, anyone wants to chime in on this, Dan? Yeah, this is. I'm going to pass you the mic here, and you can tell me all about transit in Ontario.
Well, specific to the area, what you just said downtown, can you hear me clearly? Because my TV's on. I got to But yeah, so to the downtown core, so to be point blank, very shitty. There's a couple of one-way street. One is called Richmond, one's called Adelaide Street, which they're just now putting streetcars in. And it's pretty much the same as LRT. It's above ground, electric, whatever. We have, I think it's either 2 or 3 current LRT lines in construction, but the one like near where I live now, it's been in construction for, I don't know, 35 years. So we
opening soon for the last 35 years.
Soon. And this is the funny part here. I don't know how it works in BC, but in Ontario, a lot of the companies that are responsible for actually building the lines or stuff are provincially run. So even though our TTC line is Toronto Transit Commission, just to give you a quick example, the one running now is called Crosslinks. It's mandated by the province, so Doug Ford get in there. And a couple of weeks ago, the guy was asked.
Sorry again, Dan. Your video is crapping out a little bit, so maybe you want to go back to just audio, just in case you're running out of data there. Yeah. Okay. Sorry about that, Dan. Yeah, that's good. I just didn't want you to keep dropping your audio because the video was freezing a bit. So that's all.
Oh, okay, my bad. Well, yeah. So the long story short of it is that we have no LRTs here right now, currently in Toronto, believe it or not. So none of it's built yet. None of it's complete. The line that's going in is half underground, half above ground. Tracks are down. All lines above ground are done. And as far as I can see, because in my neighborhood alone, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, I think 5 stops. And the stations are there. The buildings are there. Benches, flowers, bushes. No transit.
But no transit. Wow.
No transit. So when it comes to getting around the city, like you can get around the city to various landmarks and stuff very easily. It's once you start having to get off the major trains or streetcar services to get on buses that go into the various neighborhoods and outskirts, like where you guys would say Langley and Abbotsford and all this stuff. So here in Toronto, we got like Scarborough, Mississauga, like outskirts of Toronto. That's where you come into difficulty. And that's where you have to, if you're smart, you'll pay the extra dollar or whatever it is now and ride the GO train or buses, because they'll go right there, right? As opposed to going through all the rush hour stuff. Add on top of that, and I won't get into it because this is about strictly transit, but add on to that, on our transit system, it's basically being used like a shelter. So,
Oh.
they have
Wow.
to come more with the wraparound services for the
Yeah.
people and it's no fault of their own. They're just trying to keep warm.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So there's so many different aspects of transportation in this city. Like I said, it's been about 6 months or so now. We have the new chairman of the board for the TTC, the great counselor Jamal Myers. I want brownie points for that one. Shout out. And we got Olivia Chow, who is a mayor that is, hell bent on affordability when it comes to housing and transit and easing congestion and stuff. So I'm looking forward to it. I give it about a year. If there's nothing in a year, then just it's going to be the same old shit, right? Next year we got the federal election coming up. A lot of people don't know, and this is how it is in Ontario. I'm sure it's the same across the other provinces. Is that the feds only really provide funding? They don't provide planning. They don't provide services. They don't provide any of that. That's up to the provinces and cities. So we need people that are going to get on the same page. And we don't need 1 week people yelling for LRTs and the next week people yelling for subways. One or the other. Do it, get it done, and get people somewhere. I'm lucky. I can walk to one of 2 subway stations from my place. And if I become disabled in the future where I need a mobile device or something, everything is flat. I got no stairs. So I'm lucky.
Yeah.
That's one of 4 million people in the city of Toronto. So we got to start getting our shit together. We were supposed to be accessible by the year 2025 as a province, and we're nowhere close.
Well, like you always say, Brent, they always kick the can down, right?
Yeah, just kick the goalpost, keep kicking it forward, right? Say, no, we're getting there. There's more to do. There's more to do. Well, you know what? Like Dan said, let's just get the ship together. Let's get it done. Let's get it done now. Like work together.
We've missed 2025, so let's kick it down to 2030.
Yeah.
Oh, look, we've missed 2030. We'll make it 2035.
Oh yeah, I mean, it comes down to accessibility, like accessible transit. Like, and people should not have to figure out, worry. Oh, I can't make this bus connection. Oh, because that one doesn't run, and oh, that one's not running late. It's not running late enough. How do I get there? Oh, I have to take a whole roundabout way of getting there. Can we not figure out what works good for everybody in general, rather than worrying about all the red tape
And just to add a bit to the Toronto one too, the Crosslinks thing I was telling you about, the Eglinton Crosstown, that's the major transit thing, the LRT thing going on now in Toronto. So it's run by the Crosslinks guy, and the city of Toronto, the council, made a request for the Crosslinks CEO or whatever he's called to get in front of the camera and tell us, when is it going to be done? That's all they wanted to know. When's it going to be done? You know what his response was? You will know within 90 days of it being done when it's going to be done.
Oh, wow.
Are you kidding me?
So what the hell? You're going to tell us in 2075, you're going to tell us when it's done 3 months beforehand? Like, what kind of answer is that? Why isn't people like that fired right away and get people, whether it's transit, whether it's housing or everything else, get people with the lived experience at the table that can tell you how to get it done, that can properly plan for you. Because this bullshit goes on too long. I'm 46 years old. This line's been being built since I was like 11.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Terrible. That's like me saying, oh, Brent, are you going to have a show? Oh, yeah, I'm going to have a show. Who's going to be on? Oh, I don't know. Well, I'll figure it out, I mean.
That's what we do.
I don't know.
That's what we do every week, though, Brent.
Yeah,
I don't
know. Or here's another one. Is it going to snow? Oh, yeah. When? Oh, I don't know. Yeah. And that's always like kick the can down the road. I don't want to deal with it. So it's be some other mayor or city other council's issue to deal with later on. I don't want to deal with it, but I'll just say, I'll let you know in 90 days. No problem.
Another big, huge issue, especially in major metropolises like this, and I would imagine it happens in Vancouver and such too, right? Is that there's a lot of goddamn issues going on right now, right? And the problem is people are taking their advocacy from one issue and jumping to another, then jumping to another, then jumping to another. Stick with one issue, not stick in your lane, but stick with one issue, work on that, and then move to the next and work on that.
Yeah, totally.
Well, the thing I don't like is that, like Dan said, I mean, if you just have somebody saying, well, we'll let you know like 90 days before it comes to fruition, you're not making any politicians accountable then, because they're just like, they can just do whatever. It's like, oh yeah, it's like they have an open ticket to do whatever.
changing the
And
goalposts. Just keep
there's
changing
no
that.
accountability. Yeah.
Yeah.
And take 3 guesses who that gentleman is responsible to get back to. Could it be a premier that sits here that tried to take land from us and not giving us $400,000 homes in return, building highways we don't need? You know, it's time. If Alan was here, his fucking meter would be going off the hook because he knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Oh yes, yeah. Yeah, yeah, it's the green belt. Yes, yeah. You know, that it reminds me of our highway, our Trans Canada Highway, all the way from all the way from Vancouver Island. Of course, we take the BC ferries, which is still part of our transportation network, and then of course now it connects on. You know, we go into Highway 1. Right. Well, that would be from West Vancouver, shall we say? People that are familiar with British Columbia on the west coast. But from Tsawwassen, you have to kind of go from there and make your way into Highway 1. But eventually, but anyway, Highway 1, widening it, it's the same thing. It's just taken decades and decades and decades, and nothing's been done until just a few decades ago. Now we're expanding it. I know John, you know, we rants and raves about this all the time, and I get it. Of course, he'd probably get it more than I do because he lives out in that area, but you know, I get it by hearing on the news. I mean, all the gridlock of traffic. And as we know, more and more people are coming out here into the country and then out to British Columbia and other provinces. What happens when you get major gridlock? Oh, they say, oh, well, build more lanes on the highway. Oh, that's going to solve the problem. Is it? How about run an LRT right down the middle of Highway 1, right from Vancouver, all the way down through to Chilliwack, through Hope, all the way up to the Okanagan. Hey, you know what? Keep it going. Keep it going right across the freaking country. Wow, wouldn't that make sense? Oh, that would cost probably, yeah, I mean, in reality, yeah, probably trillions. Probably say, oh my God, this guy's out of his freaking mind. It's never going to happen. I mean, but you do it in phases. You have a commitment with the cities and the provinces, make a commitment, again, make it go across, back and forth. You know, I mean, vehicles you could take off the road, but have it running reliable, like reliable transportation networks, and have all the feeder routes connecting all the routes, take people to approximately within the area that they need to go to, and they don't have to then commute as far. They probably will still have to drive if they can, but they don't have to now commute as far, right? They're not spending hours and hours and hours in a long lineup of traffic congestion and wasting their time, family time, their time that they can put into the community, put back into the community. I mean, there's doctors, nurses, I mean, other practitioners that spend a lot of time commuting back and forth throughout regions. I mean, that time could be spent back into our healthcare system. That'll be into another segment. But yeah, I mean, can we fix things? For sure. Working together, transportation networks. So getting from Ontario, definitely, I'd love to explore that. One thing I do want to ask you, Dan, is getting from Toronto to Niagara Falls. How difficult is it to get from that point to that point? Like, what is the best?
Very simple. Very simple. I'm pretty sure that there's a train that runs there, GO train. So our GO train normally goes as far west as Hamilton, which is about an hour and a half away from here. Niagara Falls is just a little bit down the road from there. But yeah, I know they started a pilot project of a train starting either last October or the October before. So I am not quite sure 100% if it's full-time service now there. But I know for a fact that even if it wasn't, GO buses go there all the time. It's straight across one highway, the 401 going westbound. Yeah. So if you're driving, it's an hour and a bit. And obviously if you're on the GO train, it's not too much more than that. A couple minutes added for each stop. And yeah, it's good to have that. And it makes sense because it brings you to a tourist area that would bring dollars in, especially after COVID and everything, which is precisely why they're trying to get the integrated service here in Toronto, or the integrated fare, here in Toronto for that. And yeah, it's people just got to remember too, it doesn't matter where you are in Canada, when people mention transportation network, it's more than just your buses and your subways. It's your cars, it's your bikes, it's your pedestrian walking, right? So that's why we need all hands on deck to be bringing various ideas from different aspects of it to come together. And I swear, I'm not running for office this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's transportation. It's yeah, you're right. It's not just, you know, buses. It's or, you know, I mean, you got scooters. I mean, you got scooters. You've got these other ones that are almost like, I call them like skateboards now. They got a one they hold on to. I've seen them up and down our bike lanes here. They're so cool. People can fold them up and they can take them onto the bus, and then when they get off, they just continue on. They've got these big giant bikes now. They're the battery operated bikes. Unfortunately, they don't fit onto the racks on the buses here. They're not designed to fit onto the buses there, which is unfortunate. SkyTrain, yes, they can. But yeah, they definitely, on the buses, they have racks on there, and they just fit the traditional bikes on there, which is great. I think that's really good for mobility wise, for exercise, for people that are able to ride around on the bikes. Heck, you know, you can get away from here if I wanted to, and if I had a bike, which that's want to try and buy a couple mountain bikes. I would love to be biking again.
I want to ride my bicycle.
I'll be doing a breaking with Brent, hooking a camera up here. What?
Well, you know what I was gonna say. For all of your complaints on Victoria, and I know they are warranted, but you know, one of when the first time I ever went over to Victoria by myself, I had never, you know, I've been over to the island before, you know, it was back when I used to work for the Ministry of Environment, and I went over there by myself. And like I said, I've been over the island before, but never right downtown Victoria. And I went down there. I got in there kind of late too, and but my meeting that I was there for wasn't until the next morning. So I just kind of did the first day. I just did the whole touristy thing, and I just started walking, you know, and I was able to walk quite a while, like back in the day, you know, on crutches. And one thing that really impressed me is how walkable Victoria is. Now, like that doesn't say anything about the bus service, but just as a walkable city, I like, as somebody that had never been there before, I had no idea where I was going. I just kind of had in my head, well, I think maybe the legislature buildings are this way, and I started walking there, and lo and behold, that's where they were. And I started, you know, and like I said, like I never was there before. I didn't know where I was going, and I didn't get lost because it's very compact. Like as a walkable city, it really is impressive. But again, that doesn't say anything about the transit. I'm just saying, but as a walkable city, it's very impressive how walkable it is around the harbor area there.
It's very beautiful area for anyone who hasn't been to Victoria. The downtown core is definitely, I totally can echo that. It is definitely walkable. It is very nice to walk around on the downtown area. There's lots of small independent stores, shops, anything that you're looking for, you can find down there. Definitely along Government Street for sure. That's really neat. It's how the street is designed. It's like a brick street. It's like all bricks on the street. It's so neat on how it's designed. A lot of historic buildings here. And then you walk along there and go along Douglas Street. I prefer Government Street more than Douglas Street. The reason why, it needs to be cleaned up. And Dan dives into that topic a lot, and I do too. And Dan, you know where I'm going with that is,
well, it's changed a lot.
Yeah,
it's changed a lot in the last, you know. Yeah.
Oh yeah, for decades.
I mean, Victoria used to be very pretty, and it wasn't the homeless mess that it is now.
Yeah. It's unfortunate, right? It just the city really, and the province really needs to really focus and get the people the help that they need. Because like a lot of businesses are their windows are unfortunately they're getting smashed in, they're getting broken into the businesses. Some businesses are shutting down. They just say because of insurance claims, it's getting to a point where they can't. It's costing them more money in insurance claims than to run the business. As property taxes go up too on top of it, so it's sad. But I still love the downtown core, regardless of that. Yeah, like the legislature there, they got the art, they got the our museum there, which is awesome. Recently went there in the summer with Sonia's mom. She wanted to go there. Sonia,
Are they still planning to retrofit that thing, or have they kiboshed that now?
it kiboshed it. Yeah, that,
yeah, okay.
it backfired on that. So
Yeah.
they're leaving everything the way it is. I missed the wax museum. They had the wax.
Oh yeah,
museum.
the wax museum used to be there too. Yeah,
and the miniature. The miniature. The what they call it? It was a museum. Have all the miniature people.
and then they had the one
Miniature world.
right on the water there. They had the underwater thing. You
Yeah.
could go underwater.
Gardens. Yeah.
They don't have that anymore, but that was cool.
That was the miniature world and the underwater gardens. I think it was all the same building. Yeah.
That's neat.
But now they have another building that's there. And right beside there, that's the Washington State ferries. What's it called?
Blackball
ferries. Yes.
Blackball ferry.
Yeah. And that's when I took last year. So that's they're right now. They're actually the ferry's going through a retrofit. They're doing a annual retrofit of it. So it won't be back in service until February the 8th, I believe it is. So anyone who's interested in knowing that, I just heard down the news. So it's out of service for just over a month. It runs between Victoria and Port Angeles, Washington. And then from there, you can actually take the bus. Again, it's like a Greyhound, but it's neat. It's like a miniature Greyhound. It's like a transit bus, but it's like a Greyhound. So it's got your Wi-Fi on there. You can plug on your phone, and that's pretty cool. $10, $10 US, and you can take it right from there all the way to Bainbridge.
So you just have to make sure you have your passport if you take it, though.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, you do, and just pay $10 US, drop it into their little coin counting machine like the transit bus does, and put it in there, and off you go. Each direction, right to Bainbridge, and then from there you catch a ferry to Seattle. Yeah, so talking about the after Ontario, I guess the Maritimes. I don't know much. I guess I should have maybe had somebody else on the panel would have known more about that. I know that different areas don't have as adequate transit service as other communities and other provinces. I do know about
Speaking of the Maritimes, actually, we are almost at the top of the show, by the way. But I do want to stress the point. Like I do want more people, because I know there must be people listening in the Maritime provinces. I would love it if people from the Maritime provinces would come on and share their stories of what it's like in the far east of Canada. Like, what is it like to have a disability in Nova Scotia or Prince Edward Island or whatever. I actually do know one woman out there. I should try to reach out to her. I haven't reached out to her for a number of years now. But if there is anybody that does live out that way with a disability, I would love to hear the stories, because it seems to me that we've covered a lot of areas, like even outside of Canada. We've covered like even Trinidad and Tobago and all that.
And even the UK.
And the UK and the US, but we've never gone past Ontario. And it would be cool to get truly all the way to the other coast, and
coast to coast, yes,
and get a reflection of what it's like in the Maritime provinces. Yeah.
Well, I can touch on it briefly for you, because there is another show that I participate in, right? And one of the main people that come on there is from New Brunswick.
Okay.
And Dave explained to us, it's actually, the way she's explained it to me, it's actually similar to Doug Ford here in Ontario, in the sense that I believe their premier is Blaine Higgs, and he's starting to go after Just for example, like services for LGBTQ plus people and all the social services that you would think a Doug Ford would cut, right? So she's saying it's very difficult out there. I know they live in an area where they're lucky enough to have transportation, like their own vehicles and such. But I'll try to point some people your guys' way because I don't know much about it either. I know about ferries in Newfoundland and stuff like that, but I don't know about the inner city portions of the island or anything. So yeah, I'll try to point some people to your way. But thanks for having me on again today. Sorry about the visual there. I know that guy's
Yeah,
clearer than
and
I
the
am.
only reason I got you to turn off your camera again is that I didn't want the audio to crap out as well. So I'd rather
Well,
have
and that's
us.
what's most important, right?
Yeah,
To
I'd
get the
rather have
information
solid
out there,
audio
right?
than yeah. So
Yeah.
that's why. Yeah.
We'll still be on for a little bit here, and then we'll be ending the show. I wanted to dive in a little bit about Prince Edward Island. I do know the transit a little bit because I was out there decades ago now. It also seems like yesterday. Time flies, right? It's on my bucket list also. But getting there, yeah, like again, of course, this is going back decades. I went through the U.S. So I went all the way through the U.S. from Vancouver all the way down to Seattle, and then I went straight across on the Greyhound. Greyhound, yeah. I'm not going to talk about train. All the way across the U.S. All the way down to Chicago, all the way down to Pennsylvania, all the way up the eastern seaboard, up through Boston, Massachusetts, up to Maine, and got off in Bangor, Maine. Okay, anyone who's familiar watching this, yeah, that's quite the journey. Especially I went through New York City. Now, when I went through New York, now people are thinking, oh, when did he go? When I went, okay, this is probably going to put shivers through people's spines. Okay, and I'm not even going to go there, dive into it. I went through there and I was like looking out the window on the Greyhound because I had never been there in my life, going, wow, looking at all these big tall buildings going through New York. And what did I see? I saw two big towers right side by side. Wow. And I said to a few people on the bus, what are those towers? Oh, those that's the World Trade Center. Oh my gosh. Wow. I said, on my bucket list, I said, I would love to sometime in the future come here and do some sightseeing and just take pictures and do some photography. And oh yeah, sir. I mean, they've been here for years. I mean, yeah, maybe some other time, but yeah, you don't probably, yeah, there's certain areas of, New York that you don't want to be wandering around by yourself. There's areas that are fine. Yeah. So yeah, anyway, so I look back at that and just a memory, right, of, I'm like, wow, and sure enough, as we all know what happened going forward. So it kind of gives people an idea of when I went. Yeah. So yeah, that was so that was in 2000. Yeah, so going forward, I got up to Bangor, Maine, and then took the Greyhound stop there. That's as far as it went. I had to catch another Acadian bus line, which serviced from there all the way up to the Maritime provinces through New Brunswick, and they had a little tiny little hut there, right in Maine, at the border crossing to come to Canada. One little hut. That's it. And the bus would pull up there, and the customs officer would get out of there, and he'd walk up to the bus. And, hey, bus driver's like, okay, everyone, just remain seated, stay on the bus here, and the customs officer will come on here and check your passports or your ID. Of course, back then you didn't have to have your passport; you just have your photo ID. You still carry your photo ID with you anyway. So you got on and just check your baggage, make sure everything else is fine. Okay, and then off you go through New Brunswick. And so we took the Acadian bus line up. And when I got to Prince Edward Island, I went through New Brunswick and through St. John, New Brunswick. Such a beautiful little area. Yeah, there's a lot of areas we went through. Moncton, New Brunswick was very pretty too. And after Moncton, New Brunswick, that's when you cross the Confederation Bridge. So you go across the Confederation Bridge. That's a long bridge. And when the windstorm comes, they can shut that bridge down. They actually have a little ferry that goes from New Brunswick over to Prince Edward Island. Never took it because they got the bridge going. So the bus went across, and it's a toll bridge, right? I don't have to pay the toll; it's part of the ticket. It's already included when you're on the bus. That is. And to get to Prince Edward Island, I took the transit bus a little bit when I was around there. that was quite neat. And Charlottetown, and I spent most of my time when I was out there just outside of Summerside, in Baldeck, just as a commute outside of Summerside. A friend of my mom's, which I know lives out there still, so it's kind of nice where I can still go out there if I ever wanted to, and come definitely visit. I spent some time in downtown Summerside, just outside of the city, which is maybe about 3 blocks outside of the city. So it was within walking distance. I could actually go to the little community. It's not much of a big city. I call it little city.
Yeah.
I've seen some accommodation stuff on maps now. Wow, it's really growing. I'm just like, whoa, they got a big hotel on their waterfront area. I'm thinking, what? That makes no sense. I'm thinking, I saw the graph. I'm like, where is that? Because they have a McDonald's there. They have a Burger King that's right in the downtown area there. So it's pretty cool. So not that I spent much time going to those places, but it was there if I wanted a cup of coffee or grab a quick burger or whatever, you know what I mean, back then.
I wonder if the McDonald's there has a lobster bisque or something.
I don't know. That they're big on seafood out there though. That's the thing I found that out, and when I was out there, I got taken to a seafood restaurant, and it was a I have to find that out. I'll follow up on that part. But it was a what do you call it? It was way on the waterways. Like there's 2 waterways that kind of meet each other, and it's like kind of a lookout tower. And anyway, we went and had seafood there, and I'm not a big seafood person, in per se on certain things, but some people don't like fish. I mean, they have salmon there and just sockeye. I mean, everything, right? And so I just had fish and chips. They had escargot there, and no thanks. No,
I had it once, and it was.
I did too, and I had to use I had to use a drink to kind of wash it down. Let's put that. And my guess was that that were with us, and a family friend was not too impressed with me. Let's put it that way. Yeah. But it comes down to personal preference, right? But I had really good time. I enjoy the memories of it, and it's on my bucket list again. There's a few key areas that I'd love to go to. Ontario is definitely one of my go-to areas. When I say Ontario, like Southern Ontario for sure, where Toronto, the GTA, and I want to go
but
to.
If you're coming here to check out the LRTs, you're going to have to wait till 3 months in advance, buddy.
Okay, I'll have to keep that in mind and communicate.
I want to get to Nova Scotia one day.
I do. I want to go there too, in Prince Edward Island, and the trees out there are so tiny. They are so tiny. That's the first thing that stuck in my mind. And I said to Sonia about that too. And she goes, "What?" And I go, "Oh yeah. Well, you have to see it to actually understand." And I saw it. I was just so mesmerized looking out the window on the bus, going, "What happened? Huh?" The trees out here are so tall out there. But the weather out there is so volatile compared to here. It reminds me of Prince Edward Island. It reminds me of Victoria in a many ways. A lot of same characteristics of the weather. It can change very quick. So a lot of similar things, but they get more violent weather out there than we do out here, because they get the eastern, they call it northeasterlies that come right up there. All the violent weather. If you like active weather, I guess the weatherman might probably like weather that. So But so again, you'll get to the transportation stuff. One thing I did forget to mention though, for BC, well, I mean, I covered our main transportation network, but because as everyone knows about BC ferries, definitely they need to be running more frequent service. The ships are outdated. They need more newer ones built. Quite a fiasco when it comes to the reliability. You have to hope that they're running right. And lately they have been. They have one of the ships that are actually getting retrofitted, and they had an engine problem, so they had to send it into I guess to where the manufacturer was. So they'll be coming back eventually. And definitely,
we used to have those fast ferries, and I know a lot of people hated those things because they thought,
the fast
because they weren't designed. They weren't designed for the area really, like for our waterway, but they were great though. I mean, I was on them a lot. I got to ride them a lot, and I actually really liked them. And
that's what I mean. really liked them because of how fast
Yeah.
they were. But
They,
yeah, the waterways.
yeah. I mean,
it-
unfortunately, they had to uh they
Sell them
had to
off.
slow down. They had to slow down the ferry because it was sucking in logs and stuff like that because the
Mhm.
engines were too powerful. But aside from that very serious design flaw, and it was a design flaw, no doubt about it. But the ferries themselves were amazing, and personally,
Mhm.
I think it was criminal. It was criminal what Gordon Campbell he made it this big joke of like let's sell these ferries off for like pennies on the dollar.
Yeah, firewood basically. Yeah,
Yeah,
like firewood.
and it was just criminal what he did
Yeah,
because they those ferry like how many were there? There was like three of them built. Was it three?
yeah, the
It was three.
catamarans.
It was three,
Yeah,
right? The three catamarans,
I
and
believe so. Yeah.
they were beautiful, beautiful, beautiful ships.
They could have serviced the Salt Spring Island. They could have
Oh,
serviced
they could have
all that.
served. They could have done anything with them, but you know, I mean, it was such short-sightedness just to
Huge
turn it
investment.
just to turn it into like this political
Yeah,
grenade where it's like, look what you did. It's your fault, and just
yeah,
like
yeah.
lob a grenade at it and blow it up and say
They blamed the NDP for it,
and it was useless when they were
yeah,
beautiful. They were beautiful ferries,
they
beautiful.
could have easily used those ferries on smaller routes, and maybe slowed them down, but use smaller routes. It could have been
Yeah,
perfectly fine. But yeah, they kept blaming the NDP,
yeah,
and that's the problem. Is that I
and
understand.
so there's
Pardon
like
the
three
word,
ferries that were beautiful, and then they just threw them away for nothing.
yeah, it's always the blame game, right? And it's like, blame them. Yeah, I mean,
Politicians
huge
don't
investment.
blame each other. What are you talking about, man?
What's that?
Yeah.
Politicians blaming each other? Yeah, right.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
no,
bite your tongue. Bite your tongue. Politicians never do that.
no,
I promise I
never.
wasn't going to try to swear today, man.
Yeah. Yeah, but
No.
yeah,
It,
I'm still bitter. I understand that that there was a fatal flaw in them, that they weren't really built for our waterways. But
Mhm.
you could have done anything. I mean, just to throw them away and say they're useless was not the right play.
They could use them even also for tourism if they wanted to just
Oh
use them for
yeah.
tourism. And like, there's so many like sightseeing tours. They could have done so
Oh
much.
yeah. They could have done anything with them, but they
They
just
could have
lot.
parked
decided
it
to throw
somewhere
them.
along the water and used it as housing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. They,
Definitely.
they were seriously beautiful, beautiful, beautiful ships. Like
I mean,
really nice.
a ferry that normally, I'll give you an example, or anyone watching this podcast or listening later on. So the catamarans, they were designed, as Neil mentioned, they were designed for to be fast and efficient, and that's basically what they were. They were fast. They weren't efficient. They were fast, yes, and
Yeah.
granted. But the fact is that what happens is that when they would come into docking, it would create such a rush of water, and
A
it was
big wake. Yeah.
yeah, and it would start eroding away some land masses around the docking areas, and it definitely created a problem. So like the ferry routes in just for anyone watching or familiar with BC ferries, the main terminals. When I say main ones, servicing Vancouver or Greater Vancouver or Metro Vancouver, they changed the terminology, whichever. From Nanaimo over to Horseshoe Bay, which is West Vancouver. Okay, and if you keep going up from West Vancouver, Highway 99, you keep going north, you're going to go to Whistler, right? So people are going, oh, okay. So that's where he's talking about. Yeah. So that's one area. Now the other area is Tsawwassen from Swartz Bay over to Tsawwassen. Swartz Bay, Victoria, they call it, okay, which is not in Victoria, but that's what they call Victoria, Swartz Bay, which is still a good an hour bus ride out of Victoria. So you still got to travel almost an hour just about to downtown Victoria. So those ferries, those catamarans, they actually serviced the main routes. Mainly, they serviced out of Nanaimo over to Horseshoe Bay. They would take about an hour and 35 minutes on the normal route on the ferry. But when they brought the catamarans in, it chopped off 35 minutes off that.
Yeah.
So it would only be an hour ride. So that you can imagine how fast it was going, right? You're chopping up for 35 minutes.
And they couldn't take as much cars,
No.
but they, like I said, they were still amazing ships.
Hmm.
Yeah, very, very beautiful.
And now they have a new private company that actually provides service also from Nanaimo Harbor, not the BC Ferries terminal, but Nanaimo Harbor into downtown Vancouver. It's called Hello Ferries. Yeah. Or Hula, or is it Hula or Hula? Hullo, Hullo Ferries.
Okay.
It's a private company, and they provide service right from the Nanaimo harbor. People are familiar with it. The port of Nanaimo. So what was that, Sonia?
They're not wheelchair accessible.
But they're not. Oh, Sonia said they're wheelchair accessible. However, I thought there was a discussion about them making that more accessible. There was a lady that had taken the ferry and said it wasn't wheelchair accessible, but I think the company that was early last year, and I think the company has now looked into that and made it more accessible. We'll have to do a follow-up with that and check on that part.
Maybe they'll just have a little dinghy back, and you put a wheelchair on the little dinghy.
Hook it out and then just pull it along on the behind in the dinghy. Well, it'd be a bumpy ride with the waves. You'll think you're at the Peony or something. You'll think, wow, it's just part of the admission here. Anyway, if I'm getting from the port of Nanaimo all the way to downtown Vancouver, right where what was that other one that goes from to North Vancouver? The sea bus. The sea bus terminal. That's where it comes in. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And really fast too. I think it only takes the same thing, an hour. They got the same type of catamarans. That's what they're using there. They're using catamarans.
Yeah, so like we could have kept ours, and they could have kept them in service. That would have been fine. But
they could have sold them off to Hullo.
Yeah,
really.
It was all a big a political power play from Gordon Campbell. He's like, thinks he's all like the best since sliced bread, and so he has to like show off that he's so much more intelligent than anybody else, and that just kind of pisses me off when politicians get like that.
Yeah, and then of course now, as we now gear into 2024, guess what's this year? Magic thing is going to happen. I don't know how magic it is. I mean, I guess we'll find out. What happens in October of 2024? And that is scheduled in October of 2024. I'll give you a hint. 60. I'll give you a hint in BC. What happens in October of 2024? I believe it's October 21st of 2024.
Oh yeah.
Well, I'll give you a hint, Dan. Who's the Premier of British Columbia?
I would love to say Doug Ford.
well, I guess we'll find out what's going to happen in October. I mean, that is the scheduled date for the election of what's going to happen. Yeah, we have the provincial election in October of 2024. That's
going to be interesting. That's going to be interesting.
Well, yeah, I mean, those are going to be some of the pressing issues
because David Eby didn't really win. He didn't really win the premiership. It was just kind of handed to him, right?
It was what was that? I think it was just automatic because one of the other candidates got pushed out.
Like he wasn't really voted in by the voters.
Proclamation, I think, right?
Yeah.
It was just So it's going to be interesting because, like I say, a lot of the pressing issues coming forward when the candidates ask when they do door knocking, or I'm in apartments, they can't door knock here, but if I do come across anyone, I'll be saying like transportation. Obviously, as everyone knows, when I advocate, transportation is my number one biggie. I mean, housing is the 375 guy too. And I'll still say it's 375 because sure, it's 500, but not everybody got that. Not everybody got that extra money. And yeah, like there's a lot of things I love to advocate for. Definitely, transportation is my number one thing because people do need to get around from community to community. And once I tackle that part, yeah, join with my allies against the housing. I mean, allies, other advocates too, across this region, across this beautiful country that we call Canada. We need to get housing fixed. We need to get a control on this. I call it an emergency, right? I know a lot of the critics and bureaucrats across the country that call it housing crisis. I call it an emergency. Let's treat it as it is. It's a state of emergency, and let's get this dealt with. Like, no disabled person or senior or person on a fixed low income, people who are living at minimum wage, people who are in between, like low income, middle class. I mean, everyone's feeling the pinch. Yeah, I mean, I don't have the magic solution, and I don't pretend to have the magic solution because I don't. When it comes to how to fix this complete disaster that it is, it's been allowed to get out of control. And now it's like they're all bureaucrats pointing fingers. Oh no, it's your fault. It's your fault. No, you did this. What I want to see happen is I want to make sure as a human right. I'm not going to dive into a lot of human rights stuff, but people with disabilities, they should have enough revenue to cover the high market rent. Now the governments say, well, we got contractors building housing. Come on, let's get real, okay? Like, I agree. Yes, all kind of housing needs to be built, and I'm not saying don't get your contractors to build the housing, but you have to be homeless, or you have to be fleeing violence. You have to be on the verge of being evicted or losing your home in order to get put on a list, a waiting list, a very long waiting, like years, up to at least
10 years.
Minimum 10 years. And they take families with children first. Right. I know Cassandra has talked about this on the show before.
What we should say, Brent, I mean, I know we're getting close to basically the end of the show here now, but I did want to say that this show today, it ran as the fifth installment of a disability story. So we did 4 others prior to this one, and so this is a disability story, transportation or public transit one.
Yep.
And probably maybe the next one might be disability stories, health related or something like that. If anybody else has any other ideas, let us know. But we kind of wanted to put like a disability spin on it, like as a disability story, that it's another one, extension of that kind of theme.
Absolutely, Neil.
But what I was going to say is, fairly soon, I think we're going to have a Biff Naked on the show.
Yes.
And for people in BC here, they know who Biff Naked is. She's a very fierce advocate for poverty, and she used to be really heavily involved with the welfare food challenge and stuff like that. So I just wanted to kind of close up the show and say, like, yes, housing is an issue and all that, but like the transportation and the health piece, it's all connected. It's all connected, right? I mean,
it is.
Like if you don't give people enough support, of course, like I actually just looked back just a couple of days ago just to kind of refresh my memory, but it was in 2018 where they actually stopped the welfare food challenge because it worked out to it was $6. It worked out to $6 a week.
Yeah,
$6 a week for a food allowance.
Yeah, that was the welfare challenge. Yeah,
and they realized that for $6 a week, you're going to get a lot of people sick. So in hospital.
It was actually making the actual people that are volunteering doing that, making them sick.
Yeah.
And the politicians too. They said they couldn't do it because it was actually making them sick. Yeah. What does that tell you?
I mean, that should tell you right there. It's like,
If it's making the politicians sick, then we
Yeah.
got a problem.
like a $6 budget for a week is not much. I mean, you can, I mean, even like say $10 to $12 a day
Oh,
is
it's bad enough.
that's a lot. But we're talking $6 for a week.
A week, that's, oh my gosh, I know, that's just beyond.
I mean, I can't even imagine. That's
I mean,
like, it's disgusting. It's
yeah, I mean,
disgusting.
you barely even buy bananas for that. I mean, an apple, you can't even buy an apple for a whole bunch of apples for a whole week of that. There's a problem there. Yeah, there's definitely so much inequality, but don't worry. In 2025, we're getting a new state-of-the-art computer system. It's going to be amazing. It's going to handle huge payouts, apparently. It's going to be just magic, apparently. But I mean, I don't know. My pink unicorn behind me, something tells me different. I don't know.
I think it's grinning at you, Brent.
Grinning at me. It's saying,
grinning at you.
It's saying, we've heard this before.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe. Hey,
it's a very smug grin, Brent.
Yeah.
Very smug grin.
Well, maybe.
I think it's saying, Brent, stop your shit. There's only so many of us, eh, buddy?
That's right.
Yeah. So people watching today are like, hey, he got off topic. I thought it was about transportation, but exactly, it's about housing, transportation, health, you name it. Exactly, Neil, what you mentioned. Like, you were bang on that, because it's all interconnected. If you don't have your health, well, how are you going to have your transportation? If you don't have your transportation, how do you get to the hospital? How do you see your doctor? Okay. And then if you don't have your food insecurity, how do you have all your food and everything all interconnected with each other? Like, you need your.
And is it healthy to stay in your house all day? To be
Exactly.
locked away in your house all day because you can't get out to a bus or a
and
taxi
what if your place is infested with whatever? What if you got mold, mildew? I mean, what if you can't? It's uninhabitable. Well, then the government says, oh well, it's uninhabitable. Well, now you get put on a waiting list.
And what if you're trying to live off of $6 a week in a food allowance? $6 a week,
right? And your diet doesn't even support that. What if you've got a
and again, let's remind people, this was back in 2018. It was so you can imagine what it would be now.
6 years later.
6 years later. Like, what is it now? If it was $6 a week back then, what is it now?
With inflation, oh geez, like, you're probably looking at maybe $2 a week.
Yeah, I don't know.
But 2 or 3, maybe 3.
It's stupidly low, though.
I know, and I'm looking forward to having Biff on.
And we should say again, like, this does not fall at the feet of food banks. I'm sorry, it does not fall at the feet of food banks. It falls at the feet of government to do the right thing and give people enough freaking money for food. Like, you have to do that. It's not the responsibility of food banks to pay for everything. It's not.
When we had in British Columbia, I know it's very unfortunate, and because in Ontario they should have had the same supplement. And I still look back at that, and I was livid when I found out that Ontario was not given the same supplement. Or maybe they were. Maybe Doug Ford decided to hold back on it and not give the money out. Something tells me that, Doug, I think
he did hold back, actually.
I think you did, bud. I think you held back. But BC, they gave $300. Let's just see how this improves people's well-being during when we had COVID. But everything came to a complete grinding halt across the whole world. Okay. So, but BC, they gave $300, and they said they were going to do it in increments. They're going to see how it goes, see if we need to keep extending it. And they kept extending it. Well, what happens when you give people more income? They say, oh, well, this is now, I guess this is what my check is now. Okay, going forward. But then the government said, well, it's not going to be permanent. And they made sure it was very well documented that it wasn't going to be permanent at the beginning. But as time went on, they kept it going for 9 months. 9 months. And that was in 2020. Okay, they started that supplement going. Closer to the end, the government said we're going to start phasing it down. We're going to then eliminate it right off. Well, the disability advocates and people with disabilities who it directly the money went to, and also the advocates. I mean, other advocacy groups stood up, with the disabled people in BC and said, well, wait a minute, hang on. And I know because we actually were part of a campaign back then. Sonia and myself were part of the $300 to live campaign. We joined forces with them. And we got the media. Media came out. The media got tipped off. Hey, wait a minute, what's going on here? So they contacted us and said, what would happen if the government took away the $300? Actually, hang on. Let me just pause that for a sec. First of all, the government came out, the media came out and said, it recorded us right in the middle of COVID. They had this neat because they had this long microphone. It was like stretched way out there. And the guy was in the parking lot. We're standing here, this long microphone, and it came up close and says, tell me, when do you want the government to implement this in? Sonia said, well, now. I mean, it affects people's lives now. I mean, how about you, sir? Well, I would hate to see if they don't put it in now, how it really affect people's lives going forward. People are suffering now. My gosh, I said, right, you're right, Sonia. I mean, so guess what? The government acted on, other recommendations from other people. They put the money in. Fast forward. This is where I said paused. So fast forward. It got closer to the end, and the media came out and said as a follow-up story. They said, would you like us to do a follow-up story with you? Because we would like to do that. I said, oh, for sure. I said, we just moved into a brand new condominium. I mean, apartment building, but it's still a condominium. I mean, they could be flipped over. I mean, as people know, apartment buildings can be switched back and forth. Okay. So when the construction people built it, we saw it getting built. We thought, wow, wouldn't it be nice to live in that nice place? I said, so that's all you said. I go, yeah, I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, the government's not going to give us enough money to live on. I mean, are you kidding me? Why would they want to do the right thing, allow us to live in that nice place? Okay, well, she goes, well, I don't know, we got the $300. I go, right, we got $300 each. I go, I mean, technically we could theoretically live in there. And so I said, well, I guess the only way to really know that, I said, the government's not going to tell us if they're going to keep it going. I said, of course, I still remember saying that to Sonia, right? Do you remember me saying, I go, they should do the right thing. And Sonia goes, well, yeah, they should do the right thing and keep it going. And so I said, well, let's go to the ministry's office. They'll know, right? So I went down to the ministry's office and I said, well, here's an intent. They call it intent to rent form. You have to basically prove that is where you're going to be renting. And the government now will give you, you have to say what the address is and then say, do you need a damage deposit? Yes or no. It'll say yes or no. If you don't need it, you just tick off no. And then they'll give you, they'll just make sure that they'll give you your check going to that address. If you need that damage deposit, they will issue the damage deposit out to your landlord, and they'll take off $20 a month there going forward off your check until that amount is fully repaid. Yeah. So at one time the government used to actually give out damage deposits way back in the 1990s. They stopped doing that because unfortunately there was some bad actors who took advantage of the system, and they would just go and cash the check and they wouldn't give it to their landlord. They would just go and use that money. So it's like the bad apple in the class. One person causes the problem. Guess what? The whole class has to stay after because of one person, right? So that's how it happens now. But I can understand. I can justify to understand the concept of it. But like where they can now take $20 off until it's fully repaid. You don't have to pay it all at once, which is good. Okay, I understand that part. So we went to the ministry's office with this form, and the manager agreed. Said, "Hey, yeah. I mean, you got $300. The government's not going to take it away." Oh, really? She goes, no. Yeah, and that came from the apartment manager. She goes, "They would not do that, Brent. Don't worry about it. Like, we can rent to you, no problem. You guys pay your rent on time." Because she checked our references and everything, and we already knew. And she goes, "I just need the damage deposit." I'm like, okay. She goes, "Yeah, you guys are green light. You're good to go." I go, "Awesome." She goes, "Yeah, so congratulations. We just need the money. So we just get the ministry to see what they say." And so I go there, and she goes, "Oh yeah, Brent, don't sweat it. Don't sweat it. This is going forward, so Sonia, like you guys don't sweat this. Like they're not going to take the money away. They're gonna continue it on because it's bettering people's lives, right? You could buy nutritional food. You can pay the higher rent. You could buy all the food you need. You don't have to go to a food bank. You can go and buy the food that you need. I go, yeah, we can make a go of this. And I remember John Horgan, the premier at the time, you guys. And this goes to Kevin Falcon. If you're watching this, okay, the premier at the time said, okay, he said, just be careful with these bad actors. Some of these corporate landlords, they love to just flip it things over, flip it so that they can get you in and then get you out, and then they can jack up the rent. I said, no, John, don't worry. We got a good landlord here. It's going to be perfectly fine. Well, then you don't have to worry about it then. Just be careful because you got some shady landlords out there that will take advantage. I go, no, we can make a go of this because we got the $300. He goes, well, hang on. Yeah, I'll keep advocating to make sure that it stays going forward. He said, I'll keep advocating, but I can only do so much. And what happened was they took away 50% of it, but they gave back 175 of it. The next following year, there was nothing in the budget. Last year in 2023, $125 increase. So 175 plus 125 is the $300. But
that's
you had
the shell game.
But you had to skip a year though. You had to skip a year.
Yeah.
But here quietly we'll give you the 125. Oh, but it didn't go to everybody. So even the ones that were in BC housing didn't get that 125. How is that? Because during COVID they got the whole amount. See, playing disabled against disabled. Stop that. That's not working. Missed opportunity. And I said to the last guest that we had on, Carla, I mentioned the same thing. I said, the missed opportunity, it should have went to everybody, right? It should have gone to everybody. So going forward, I'm going to be pushing for this. And Linda, she's one of our normal, regular people that jump into our chat, our online chat when we're going live here. She says that she's going to keep pushing for the $300 to be brought back in, because technically the $300 is not been brought back as a full amount.
Yeah.
So BC government, if you quietly
particularly because the cost of living is
the cost of living, because they didn't really
now.
Because they said in the BC budget when they came out 2 years ago, we're gonna increase the rates by $175. Well, they didn't say part of it was COVID supplement. And they didn't say the 125 was part of the COVID supplement. Playing that word game, the shell game. If they were to say, well, you know what, here's the $300. And I guess the long story short is to kind of summarize this is if they would have just kept that going when organizations, like tons of organizations in British Columbia, advocates, and they asked us too, how would this affect your life if we got taken away? Sonia goes, well, you would have to move. I said, yeah, we would have to abandon this place. We'd have to move. I don't know where. And guess what happened? We're in Victoria. So fast forward. Did we want to be here? No, I loved coming here to Victoria to visit it. I love this city. It's beautiful to come to see. But yeah, I mean, home is in the Fraser Valley. Home is where I know. And, it doesn't matter who's in government. They all have the same theme. Oh, a person should not have to live where they don't want to live. They should be able to live where they want. Okay, well, make that happen. Give people a decent.
And we're not asking for,
I'm not asking for gold.
Like the ritzy apartment that's dripping in with gold or whatever.
Gold,
we're just asking
around it.
We're just asking for basic,
a safe place I can call home, and that I can pay the landlord. And just say, hey, you know what? This is my home, and have a safe place I can call home where I have accessible transit around. Everything's in walking distance, or a short bus ride away. I mean, can't have everything right around, but But you're not spending an hour to go to the superstore from here. I mean, really? Like, wow! Like again, things can be fixed, and we'll be diving into the disability stories. I believe the next one I'd love to do, Neil. I think we'll make a go of this. Is health.
I would like to see that next one being
health. So if anyone watching this right now, you want to come on and talk about health, disability stories regarding health, and if it's wraparound of other things that are related to it, like what I'm talking about, if it's about transportation, if it's, but the theme would be about health, but if it's other things like it's nutritional supplements that you're not having this because it's affecting your health, the transportation not being able to get to because of your health, anything that's, connecting to that main theme, definitely reach out to us. We'd love to have you on.
Yeah, and again, we have
next Monday. That's next Monday.
We have your email, at least your email for sure, at the bottom of every video. So it'll be there at the bottom of the video, and then we also have ways of contacting us. If you go to my website, which is daddybentlegs.com, on the media page, there's a way to submit show ideas there, or if you want to be a guest. So there's lots of ways to get in touch with us. So if anybody has any ideas, our ears and our door is always open for ideas, and for people that want to become a guest. We'd love to have you on. So
most definitely. That's what it's about. It's all about talking about lived experience, your story, your disability story, what you go through on a day-to-day basis. How does different issues across this country affect your life? Political decisions, right? How can things change? I mean, what would you like to see change too, right? And what would you like to see changed? What action do you want to see? Like, how do you see things to be changed, right? Your suggestions, your ideas, and we can pass it on. And pass it on to your local MLA, your local MP, your MPP, your mayor, your city council. Talk to them at ground level. Let them know how impacts within your community, how things change, or how it's affecting your life. Because we can collectively, as citizens in this beautiful country, we can make change. We just have to all work together in our own way, but come together as allies, as as advocates, allies together, and we can actually say, hey, we have these great ideas to the policymakers and say, are you listening? Like, can you please implement these ideas in? Because it can be done. Nobody should be stranded in a community of not having the reliable transportation. Nobody should be stranded on not having their health care met, and or waiting times, wait lists in an emergency, trying to find a family doctor, trying to find a dentist, or worrying, is your coverage going to have you covered? Like, we dived into that too. Are you worried about stuff not being covered? My gosh, pharmacare.
We just have Megan. Megan just popped into the chat. Megan Walker.
Hi, Megan. Oh, hi. Hi, Megan.
Yeah.
Megan, hi.
And we are just about to punch out here, but it's great to have everybody join. So it's great.
Yeah, lots of great ideas that we have going forward. You have ideas that you'd love us to focus on, or you would love to come on as a guest and talk about these issues that, lived experience stories. Whatever topic it may be, definitely reach out to us, and we can get that integrated in, and we can get a little panel of people of our group that we have. We have our set group of people. Definitely that, where I'm going with that, Neil, because it's like our whole group, right? We have our dedicated group, and those are the ones that we have on. And we tried another method last year, and it just didn't work.
But this is the new year, so we're gonna.
It's the new year, and we're actually going with just our set group, and nothing against nobody that's watching this of saying, I think didn't you do the kind of the lineup ticket, like it's kind of going to a concert and buying your ticket. I just reach out. We tried.
We should qualify that and say that we still, the idea behind it is that we still want to reach out to so-called experts, like, for example, on today's show, I think you did try to reach out to Eric, your transit guy, guru. He was one that we reached out to. So we're always going to be reaching out to as much as we can, so-called experts, to populate the panels with to make sure that the conversation is lively and that we have people that actually know what they're talking about on the panels.
Yeah,
So-
definitely. If Eric, if you're watching this, definitely I will touch base, and I'll have you on as another segment. We'll have you on as a guest, and we can definitely talk about the transit related issues across the region. I'd love to dive into some of the aspects. I know that Eric is quite the advocate. Definitely loves to see a lot of changes when it comes to making things go green, right? Of green transportation, like in less vehicles on the road. And
or the green jacket.
yeah, there we are. Yes, yes, yes.
Well,
Oh, yes, yes.
which is a great segue into my goodbye for
Yes,
you guys.
yeah, that was great. I love that one. Yes.
Hmm.
And also while we're on the topic of that, there's something that our numbers guy is working on too. He did a little teaser video he put out there just the other day. Yeah, so I'd love people to kind of follow the little path on that one too, because
Joseph, yeah.
he's working on something there, folks. He's working on something. Yes, definitely. I think it's going to be good because Joseph actually put a little teaser out there, and so I'm going to play a little clip here for you, everybody. Here.
Today we begin our study of Bill.
Here we go.
Senators, today we begin our study of Bill S-233, an act to develop a national framework for a guaranteed livable basic income.
Given the economy, but I think I still care about climate. I still care about, the well-being of the planet. I care about the well-being of humanity. I think you can't just pick one election issue and say that's going to be the make or break issue.
There we go. That's the little teaser that's out there. He did a wonderful little teaser video on there.
I hadn't had a chance to look at that yet, so I'm glad.
Oh, you have to watch it. You'll love it. Oh, it's great. It was I was like, wow, yeah, way to go, Joseph. On that, you asked what I thought. Hey, 2 thumbs up. If I could get 3 thumbs up, I could.
That's good.
Yeah. But anyway, I just want people to just reach out to us, let us know ideas. It's a new year going forward. We're going to have this as an ongoing segment every Monday for disability stories. Doesn't matter what topic it is. We may ever something kind of rotate and go back to something that we've already talked about, because everybody's going to have their turn and saying, yeah, hey, I love the segment that you did on I don't know, straws, just for instance, if it was about straws.
I would love to get Lorelei back.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
I keep wanting to circle back to her.
Yeah.
So.
But I mean, if it's about transportation, say it's later in the year. Hey, I remember one about transportation. I want to talk about it. Sure, we can we can revisit that throughout the year. You want to be a guest on the show? We'll have Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays available each week. Mondays is our dedicated day to our themed.
And if we have to, like we don't really want to, but if Mondays are the only available day for a particular guest, then we will bump.
We can bump it. We can bump it
but we prefer not to bump.
Monday, totally.
But if there's that special case scenario where a guest can only come on a Monday, then of course we're gonna bump in that situation.
Speaking of that, before we end the show too, there was something that came to my mind. I know you and I had talked about this off air. About a special segment that we launched. Well, we did a launch of this last year for a little bit, but the appetite didn't seem to be there. I think we kind of parking it temporarily.
The open mics, yeah.
But if people really want this open mic session back, I'm not saying it's gone away. Like, it hasn't gone away, everybody. We've just temporarily parked it. But if the appetite is there and you really want the open mic, we can bring it back. Not every week. Like, we won't have it every week.
No,
because we have to make room for our having upcoming guests too. And and there's certain days that are just a no go zone for Neil. Definitely Wednesdays and Sundays, and I mean Saturdays or Sundays. However, I mean, if there's an isolated situation where, I guess if there was maybe if it was on a Wednesday, it was only for like an hour. If it came down to that's up to Neil. But
it's funny. Like if we fast forward through the calendar a little bit, like I think my wife is planning a trip just for a month, but she's going
Mhm.
back to the Philippines for a month
Right.
with her son. And so I think that'll be in maybe April. So actually for that month, I'd actually like to do 1 or 2 shows of like late night.
Oh, okay.
I
Yeah.
think it would be cool
Yeah.
for you
Yeah.
and I to like set up a couple like late night shows, like
Yeah.
start at like 9 or 10 or something. You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
that'd be kind of cool to do a couple shows like that. But
The late night hour. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. That'd be pretty
yeah,
cool.
that'd be
And
kinda
there's,
neat.
might be a chance to do some open mic sessions, here and there. But I
Mhm.
just really want to encourage people, if you really want the open mic, and again, if we do that, which we will, only if there's enough appetite, because I just don't want just 1 or 2 people showing up for open mic. It's just not worth the for us to do that, to
Mhm.
to open it up just for that. But of course, there's only enough space to have so many people on the open mic too, eh?
Yeah, like well, I mean, I don't know. Like if we wanted to flirt with disaster and open it up like big time, we could, but
We could, but
I
yeah,
don't know. I'd be kind of a little bit worried about that personally.
yeah, we would have to
You guys would be
We'll
on
see.
your own, man. No way, Jose.
What's that?
I say you guys would be on your own. No way, Jose.
Yeah, I know.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
there's been like a prerequisite of that, so we kind of know.
Yeah,
We kind of
yeah,
know the bad side of that anyway.
yeah, and that's the
But
thing
yeah,
that
just before we sign off, Dan, you should come back on camera just to wave goodbye to everybody, and we'll do the sign off
yeah.
or not. I don't know. Did you hear me?
Yeah, hold up.
Okay,
Yeah.
there you
Oh
go.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for having me on. I'm
Oh,
very
absolutely.
familiar actually with Biff Naked's work. She's done some good work with housing shelters, I
Yeah,
think,
she's
too.
great actually. Yeah.
Some food bank stuff. I mean, if you guys
Yeah.
are doing a housing show with her, I'd love to fucking be sitting around and
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure.
right?
No, we'll have you
and-
on. We'll have you on,
yeah.
Dan. Sure, right?
Oh, absolutely. I'd love and just to let everybody know too, very quickly, at DJT624 on Twitter, X, whatever the hell you're calling it, or YouTube. It's been brought to my attention lately that a couple of accounts have popped up that aren't me. So I'm just letting everybody know that those are absolutely the only accounts I use. And in closing, just to quote a wise person, right? I've decided that like going into 2024, I'm not dealing with this bullshit anymore on the side, right? So I've come to this saying that I've heard before, and it's I love myself today, not like yesterday. I'm cool. I'm calm. I'm gonna be okay. And I don't know if Brent can tell by the way he's smiling there. That's
Yeah.
actually lyrics to Biff Naked's song. So
Oh,
let's
there you
rock
go.
and roll in 2024 and get shit done. And thanks again, guys.
Yeah.
But hey, Dan, just before you sign off here is the reason I reached out to Neil about Biff Naked, because recently there's a local news station that we have on the island here. It's a Czech News, and they actually had Biff Naked on earlier in the year, and they did a kind of they did a recap of who they had on as previous guests, and they did a clip and they had Biff Naked on there. She was on the Linda Steele and Jody Vance show, and it was awesome. And then she had came on and she started talking about the welfare rates, welfare challenge. And I thought first thing I was watching that on the one segment when she was on, they did a recap of it. I thought, wow, hang on, I want to get her on here. And I was in communication with her before, but she got tied up with a lot of other stuff, going on with media and other, as a lot of celebrities, they get very busy, right? And so
But I love that she turns her celebrity into like, that she uses it in a productive way.
She's a really
you
cool
love
person.
you love to see that. You love to see that.
Yeah, she's a very cool, genuine, down to earth person who gets it. Like, and I know she's quite a fierce advocate when it comes to for people's well being, right? Her well being. I mean, it's just seeing what the welfare food challenge was and seeing the rates need to be increased. I mean, and again, well, and then the government knows. That's the thing, Dan, and everybody watching this, and Neil. I mean, The government knows the right thing, but for some reason, they just seem to be stuck with that status quo. But it's not working, folks. It's not working.
Do you remember that? Do you remember the whole thing in BC here? When was it? When it was minimum wage? $6 sucks. Remember that?
Yeah.
$6 sucks. And now, like, imagine taking that to the food challenge. That $6 a week sucks too.
Yeah,
You know,
I remember
for food.
I did the $8 an hour. It was a video that I did. Actually, it was the minimum wage was $8 an hour, and I was making at the time, I was making 10 something an hour. I was one of the senior employees at the time. So when I was making that, and then there was the $10 an hour, it was a campaign, and I was on this campaign to raise the minimum wage up to $10 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you look on YouTube, you'll find it. It was called $10 now.
I actually have watched that already.
Yeah,
but
That's a good one.
I remember with the $6 thing, it was introduced as a training wage, and then what they would do is they would just hire somebody for, I think it was 2 months,
Mhm.
and then they would fire them and then bring somebody else in for another 2 months, and they would just recycle people over, keep them at the $6 for infinity.
Yeah. Well, there was a
And-
training wage, right? That was just
Yeah.
terrible. Peter totter wage. It's like if people are doing the job, just pay them a decent wage. And when I did that campaign, Jim Sinclair, he was the president of the BC Federation of Labor. I tell you, talk about a feisty guy. Yeah. And I met there, and I remember coming down to the seaplane, and my roommate at the time, which is a good friend of Sonia's and myself, she said, "Well, where do I park my car?" Well, don't worry about that. We'll pay for it. What? We'll pay for it. They paid for her parking to park there all day at the seaplane. And so it told us exactly where to park. He showed up there and he says, "Hi, I'm Jim Sinclair." I'm like, "Oh my gosh." I met the guy in person. I go, "So how do we get there? Where are we going?" "Well, we're going to be going to Victoria." "Okay, we're taking BC ferries." "No, we're not taking BC ferries. That's why you're parking here at the seaplane." "Seaplane? I've never taken a seaplane in my life." "Well, sir, yeah, you're going to be taking the seaplane because that's how we're going to get there, and we'll be there in a half hour." "Half an hour? Oh yeah,
Yeah.
you're not scared of a flight of heights,
I
are
took
you?"
a seaplane once. It was cool.
I
So
did.
cool.
I took it. I was just like, "Oh my!" And the whole plane sitting sideways.
Landing
I'm like,
on
"Ah."
water it's the most
Yeah.
coolest thing ever. It's like,
Yeah, it was quite neat. But and
Yeah.
so we got flown over to the BC legislature, and that's where the advocacy really took off. At the time, I said, "Well, where's Gordo?" I got to meet all the MLAs at the time from all the political parties that were there. And first thing I said, Carol James was there. And she says, "Hi, I'm Carol James." She said, "Yeah, I've been following you." She says, "Thank you so much for all your advocacy." And never knew that she would actually, going forward, she was the finance minister over time.
Yeah.
So, I got to know all the MLAs. All you could eat, it was like a buffet. Wow, if I was
Yeah.
hungry. But anyway, long story short is I said, first thing, and Jim Sinclair says, "Brent," like that. I go, "Where's Gordo?" I looked around. "Where's Gordo?" "Gordon Campbell couldn't be here today." I go, "What?" "Well, I took time off out of my time. Why couldn't
Yeah.
he do it?" It was just not in the cards today. Unfortunately, he had a meeting to be in. I said, "How convenient." Convenient.
How convenient.
Yeah, right. So anyway, I got to speak in front of all the media. Imagine that, all these microphones stuck in your face, and I had a big camera, and going live right on air, big these shining lights from a distance, and Keith Baldry standing in the corner taking little notes. Yeah, it was funny because I vaguely remember now, Zussman, he was over there too. A lot of the reporters were all around there. And they said,
Yeah.
"Just be yourself, Brent. Just be yourself."
Yeah.
So I said, "Yeah." I just said how it was. Yeah, so
Well, you can be yourself, but we got to get off air now, Brent.
yeah. Thank you everyone for tuning in. You take care.
It was a good show. Thanks,
Yes.
Dan, for showing up.
Thanks, Dan.